out there? Can you hear me? Welcome to The 100 TV. Real conversations with real people. All of this has been an evolution. Nothing about this journey is how I thought it was going to be. You know, shout out to the Free Game Society, man. Shout out to everybody, Team 100. Shout out to everybody that just keeps rocking, that understands what's going on here. We're just trying to make changes without compromising the truth, right? We're not up here just for the views. We're here for the impact. But, you know, you be the judge, man. Lock in with us. We can agree to disagree, you know. But regardless, we're going to keep it 100. You can't keep it 100 with anybody unless you keep it 100 with yourself, man. Let's be clear. You gotta come correct, man. They'll pick you apart nowadays, man. People doing homework, you know what I'm talking about? So when we talk, we talking from a perspective of experience. We talking through the life journey, our ups and downs. You know, we giving it to you that way, right? But who are we though, man? We just like y'all. You ready? Alright, come on in. We going in. The 100 TV. Y'all better tap in, man. Like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification buzzer, all that stuff, man. So when we live, y'all live, man. Peace to the planet Earth on this wonderful Thursday, man. If you breathing, you blessed as far as I'm concerned. Man, first and foremost, shout out to the Hood Therapist, back for like the 50th time. What I like, I don't know if everybody caught on yet. I've been on a mission to form Voltron or the Power Rangers or whatever. I've been on a mission to form an all-star team, man. And I feel like this is one of the all-stars, man. Shout out to Real and Explicit, our brand ambassador at Lasting Layers of Beauty Institute, first ever. And shout out to your girl MJ with Hip Hop Network TV, man, getting ready to shoot her show over there with us, man. We excited. We moving, we forming, we coming together. Shout out to KT the Connector, man, over there with TKO 101 Radio, and all them other good people over there, man. A couple more announcements aside from just want to thank each and every one of you. Before I pass this over, is making an announcement, man. This Monday, we just had Sisters in Prison Reform. They got up here. They talked about the second chance law. They talked about the significance of it. It's major. It gives people that have served at least 15 years a chance to get home, because we know that parole doesn't exist in the Commonwealth of VA right now for a lot of people. So I was invited via Santia Nance that plugged me in with the ACLU Sunday to speak at the event, and I take that serious. The ACLU has over 1 million or 1.8 million members across the country, and they don't play. So I'm just glad to be a part of the process. I'm humble. Hey, man, I'm just taking the opportunity to be a voice, and I want to encourage everybody to be a voice for the people that can't necessarily be heard. And just wanted to say that. Aside from that, as I'm getting ready to pass it on over, this is the Hood Therapist Takeover. I'm excited about Hood Therapy, and we're going to get up here and talk about that one day, all that good stuff, even though it's not mine, it's hers, but I feel like I'm part of the dream, man. I'm excited. But I just want to say, if you've seen the title, I titled it Prison Traumatic Stress Disorder. And basically, I wanted to be the first of hopefully many. If you're seeing this, if you have somebody that's been incarcerated, if you know somebody that's been impacted by incarceration, my goal is to start getting people up here to maybe dive into some of their deeper thoughts, tell their stories, and be heard. And I felt it imperative to lead by example. I did 16 years, 11 months in prison. And the Hood Therapist over here, it's not just a name. She's qualified. She's got her. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce yourself in case people don't know who you are. So you can go ahead and take over, man. Let me get out the way.
Yeah, Precious from Richmond, Virginia. I currently live in Tidewater. I specialize in education therapy fields. I have a master's in behavior analysis. So that was a good intro. Thank you, Life.
Hey, I try. I try.
Period.
Um, I'm ready because basically
Okay.
we're gonna attempt to get into some of my deeper thoughts, into some, just some things that I've gone through. Because a lot of times what one person goes through reflects the experiences of many. Maybe not, step, each piece of it, but it reflects it. So I don't know. I don't really know any of the questions. You gave me a spoiler alert on like one or two of them, but I don't really know any of the rest. So I'm kind of interested.
All right. Yeah, well, I got some questions, a good amount of questions that deal with, it's probably going to span, I'm going to start from the beginning with your childhood. Can you tell me like what your childhood was like?
Childhood. I guess like the main thought attached to my childhood is the fact that I was adopted. Um, but my mother that adopted me, she had me since I was an infant. So it wasn't like I didn't she's had me all my life, right? But life at first was cool. Two parents, lived in a cul-de-sac, ranch style house, Glendale Heights, Illinois. But Pops wasn't acting, like a husband, just being like, honest. They were falling in and out. Stability went and finances went behind that. And we went from house to townhouse to being homeless at one point. Well, we lived with a family member between a room between the garage and their house, and then apartments, and we was in the hood. But good mom, great mom, but she had to work two jobs a lot of times, so she couldn't be present because she was making sure we could eat and had a roof over our head. She always gave me the knowledge I needed, but I'm a young man at the time. I'm running around exploring. She's not there, and yeah, that's what it is.
Was there any kind of trauma that you endured that you think impacts you today back then?
Yeah, man. The first time I got jumped, I was in the first grade. I got jumped by a bunch of sixth graders. I remember that. I was the type of for whatever reason, man, I was the type of kid. I always got drama. It always came my way, and I never looked for it. Um, but I remember I got jumped the first time, and I became like a little legend in the first grade. You know, and I kind of understood like the first graders were rallying behind me, and I carried that with me. Like in school, I was always like, I don't want to say necessarily the most popular, but I got along with everybody. I got good grades. I usually got picked first or second in gym class, stuff like that. But I don't know, man. It was just, I don't know. The second time, I guess another traumatic outside of that that relates to school is the second time me and a group of friends, because you just made me think of this. We were getting chased through the apartments. And I think at this time we were like in seventh or eighth grade. And it was a bunch of gang members. And it was me and probably like four or five of my homeboys. And we were I can't really explain it, but the way the apartment complex was, we didn't have no out. And I remember telling my homeboys, run, go the opposite direction. And I walked out to them. And they had a baseball bat. And, they tried to intimidate me and all that. And I was scared as hell, but they didn't do nothing. They didn't do nothing too crazy. And I earned my respect there. But it was traumatic. That was a traumatic experience. I've had a lot. I've had a lot for real. But those are probably like the first two.
Okay. From your previous upbringing to you being incarcerated, how did you have to mentally adjust like once you first got to prison?
Uh I mean, prior to I had went to like a shock treatment program because I basically dropped out of high school. Um and that was military ran. Then out of that, I went into the military. I went into the Air Force at 17, active duty. So I was actually already institutionalized. I was already structured because in the military, you gotta
get up at a certain time and make your bed. You got to eat your meals at a certain time. You're being told what to do. Once you go through basic training, I mean, you kind of programmed. A lot of us, they go through the military. So the environment, as far as time and structure, that wasn't foreign to me. The cell, being in that cell the first time, when I went to the jail, they put me straight into the hole. And that was traumatizing because the walls were yellow. There were no windows. I didn't have nothing but just me, and the doors closed, the windows closed. For the first time, I'm isolated with myself and my thoughts. But in jail, just like prison, one thing I relied on was my intelligence. Not saying that I was better or worse than anybody, but I was always a pretty intelligent guy, and I lived by the thought that the smartest man in the room controls it at the time. So I focused on helping people, forming relationships. Once I got out of my BS stage, I want to be clear, because when I first was locked up, I was still fighting and all that. But when I started maturing, okay, how can I help dude? He don't know how to write. He don't know, he needs help filling out a request form, stuff like that. So my concept of time, it shifted. I grew up in prison. I got locked up when I was 19, but I grew up pretty quick. I didn't really have a choice.
Was there any type of mental health resources that were available?
Supposedly, mental health resources in prison are a joke. They usually try to medicate you, put you on Thorazine, Seroquel. If you've been locked up, you've seen guys that were normal, or maybe been battling, might have been depressed, battling certain things, and they decided to go the medication route. And we've seen guys lose their mind. Guys no longer able to clothe themselves, no longer speak common sense, phrases. Like, we've seen those type of things. Mental health, as far as sitting down, for me, I was sitting down a lot of times in front of a little white lady, which, I appreciate the help if it's sincere, but I think with mental health, certain issues, you should be sitting down across from somebody that can at least relate to something you might have went through.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of times you didn't see that there. Yeah, there wasn't really any. The programs they weren't in depth. A lot of that stuff is a joke. It's a Band-Aid.
Describe your most traumatic incident or experience that you either had yourself or witnessed while you were there.
Man, there's a few, but I would say on Greensville, that experience itself was just traumatic. I had left. My brother went to Greensville. I think I had left him for the second time, or he had went. Whatever happened, right? Somebody that was a positive influence. And I went to Greensville, and I was on all BS. I was getting money. I had, as they say, pulled a roller. Or actually, it was a relationship. I don't even want to discredit that. But it was long standing for like 6 years. I was just moving different. But on Greensville, I remember a buddy of mine, Rambo, young kid, having a conversation with him in 3 unit, and he was nervous because he was getting ready to get moved to receive or re-entry. He's getting ready to go home. And Rambo, he was a lone wolf. He didn't get with the gang. He just moved by himself. And a lot of people didn't like that. And he said, man, I'm nervous. I know something's going to happen. I kept telling him, I said, man, you good. You about to go home. I wish I could go over there. And 2 days later, I got word back that they had killed my little homeboy, man. And I didn't see it, but I think that even though I've seen death in prison, I've seen death occur, but I think that one was more traumatic because it's somebody I would pour into, I would build. We'd walk the yard. We spent time together, man. And that one hurt. But and then I just want to say this: in prison, death, it's even worse, man, because this kid, I want to say this, he died over, he was cleaning the floor in the pod, his pod job, and he got stripper on another guy's cell floor that had put wax down, and the guy caught offense, wanted to fight Youngin. Youngin didn't want to fight, but old head backed him down. Youngin beat him up, and then the next day or whatever, the old head stabbed him up over some stripper on the floor. So yeah. No,
I'm sorry to hear that. That was a deep one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few more, but I've lost friends to suicide in there. I had a buddy that he walked it, man. He was walking his sentence down. He had I know he started with 20 some. He got under 10. You know, he had a woman that was riding with him, you know, pretty boy type, got money playing cards, you know, did tattoo, you know, he kept himself in shape. And buddy of mine, he just, I don't know what happened. He went to the hole one day and sent his old lady a text. I don't know how he got the phone in there and he hung himself. And we still don't know why. And he was in downhill motion. He was on the way out the door. And we didn't see the signs, not one bit. And it still haunts a few of us to this day. Because we don't know.
We're going to move into kind of your transition. I want to know a little bit more about how you've been doing since you've been home. For starters, what kind of habits or things that you're used to, idiosyncrasies that you think that you've brought out here, like routine, mental state?
Good habits. I get up early. I'm a firm believer if you want to accomplish, you know, more than everybody else, you get up earlier than everybody else, you know. So I always did that for the most part when I was locked up. For me, I was always, I can't say I was a clean guy, but I was a messy guy. Now I'm not. I'm an OCD guy, which I feel like that's perfectly fine when it comes to your house and stuff like that. I learned respect in that environment. Man, my brother, I keep saying Jefferson Ellie, he taught me knowledge of self. You know, he showed me where to look. just simple thing, man. I learned a lot in prison. I can honestly say, I mean, I've always been a leader. I've always been somebody, you know, respectfully the most humble. I've been somebody that's messed up more opportunities than probably everybody. Like, I don't know why. And even in prison, I was somebody that was given opportunity. But I feel like the greatest opportunity I was given in prison was the opportunity to actually learn how to be a man. And I don't know if I would have learned how to be a man if I didn't go to prison. Because prior to that, I was big, you know, ego filled. I was just I was selfish. Now I'm the opposite. Like anybody that knows me, man, I give you anything. You know, I'm just my perspective's different. It's just, yeah. My mother once made a statement. I hated it. She made two statements I never liked. She said, one time at the jail, she said, "I don't want you to be offended, but I'm glad you're locked up." And I said, "The heck you mean?" She said, "Because every time I heard the ambulances or the police sirens, I didn't know if it was you. And at least I know where you're at now." And that hit me. But the other thing was, she said, "I believe wholeheartedly prison saved your life." And I probably believe that. I could believe that because at the time, you know, even with my case, it's like this. People ask me that, why are you good with the time that you got? And it's two reasons. I'm where I am today because of the path that I took. And the other thing is, I was a young man that was in those streets, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I was given a second chance when it wasn't promised. They hit me in the head now, but I could have easily been sitting in there forever with no way out.
You said a word I was interested in, ego. So how did you go about getting, can you talk a little about your current mental health situation? What do you have going on? Are you going to therapy? Do you have any diagnoses or anything?
Yeah, sure, I'll get into it. So because of I'm one that tries to accomplish an obscene amount of things because I don't know how to just chill. Um, in the end of 2021, prior to that, my wife's like, yo, I want to open a school. We opened a school, and it was an obscene amount of pressure because here I am, ex-felon, still on probation, um, opening the school with my wife, and then she's telling me, I want you to be the principal because you're my husband. You lead our household, you should lead our business. And I'm like, oh shit. So that was an amount of pressure that was kind of unexpected. Well, it was earlier than expected. Prior to that, as I walk it back, me and my wife, we suffered 3 miscarriages. And that was within 18 months prior to opening the school. Prior to that, I was just coming home. And when I came home after 17 years, I looked up Kobe, his daughter, and the rest of the passengers had passed. And then it was a full-on pandemic. And I'm watching numbers go up in the news. Don't know if we're going to keep our jobs that I've been, fighting to get. And I don't know if the world's about to end. And I just did 17 years. I haven't really had time to chill. I haven't had time to decompress. Don't know when that's coming, honestly. So last year, I hit a couple walls, became transparent with thoughts of suicide, stuff like that. And I want to be clear, it's not necessarily because people ask, it's not necessarily I had thoughts that I wanted to do it as much as I was tired. And if anybody's ever just been that exhausted, it almost like you'll just walk into the ocean and just but good news is I'm back now. I'm getting back because I did things like I started my therapy journey. Actually lost my therapist. I'm still on a hunt to get one.
How was that, looking for a therapist and building a relationship with one?
It took me 3 tries. The first try didn't work because I'm a dominant personality, and if I don't know, it's a thing that I need to work on. But if I feel like I don't know, I gotta respect you enough to not take over the conversation, if that makes sense. But I don't mean that in like a negative way, or it's just so many people just talk, if that makes sense. So the first time I accidentally became her, I feel like I became her therapist. Yeah. The second time, it's not that it didn't work. I think it might have, but we only seen her like once, and we got switched to our last therapist, Faith, and she was dope, but she ended up leaving that agency. So, and we gotta find somebody new. But the last one, we used her, me and my wife, for individual counseling 1 week, and then the next week we would do couples counseling with the same therapist. Which
how was that?
I liked it. She was dope. She was really, I don't know. I think for me, so I think for different types of people, they need different types of therapy. And I don't think that therapy works for everybody. Right. But for me, I like talking to people. And sometimes I just need people to reflect my thoughts because I just need to hear them in a different way. But then there's sometimes where I need people to just tell me what to do because my brain is about to overload. So I think with her, and when I say that, not necessarily like just giving up, like, hey, here's all the direction in my life, but here, this is what you can do. So you're either going to choose to do it or not type stuff, Mm-hmm. And she was good at process elimination stuff when the anxiety came, helping me identify, what is and what it, things like that. And then she was good at reflection. So for me, it worked. And I'm ready. I'm eager to find another therapist it would be you, but I know you. I gotta have somebody neutral, man. Somebody go back over there, right? But I recommend it to anybody. And one thing that I'm gonna fight for, and I'm grateful for opportunities to start speaking at events like with the ACLU. I want to push for legislation that says mental health 6 months prior to release to 6 months after, at least. And you got to get a signature at the end of that 6 months. But yeah, I recommend it for anybody, man. Trauma is real. Prison messed me up, man. For real. It messed me up. I ain't gonna lie.
When did you first notice that you had anxiety? And what does anxiety feel like for you?
So for me, the more brothers I talk to a lot of people, man, that have been incarcerated. And a lot of us say that the first year wasn't the hardest year. It was like the third year or the fourth year, that range.
Okay.
My anxiety is because my situation is different, right? I'm coming home after doing 17 years, right? I came home married. Okay, so in my family, nobody did 17 years. In my family, nobody's married for real, right? We opened a school. In my family, nobody opened a school. There's a lot of places I can't go for answers necessarily, right? Mm-hmm. What else? With this stuff, the 100 TV, the opportunities to just speak to people and at these different events, and this is all things that a lot of people I know they've never done. So the anxiety for me, I call it voluntary stress. The anxiety for me is always trying to determine how to connect dots. What's the next move? How can I incorporate the right people? My brain, it tends to overwork because I'm always I hate talking like that because when people be like CEO mode and all that, but I have to be in that mode. I have responsibilities. I have families that I advocate for. I got a brother that I'm trying to bring home. I got a whole school that I'm running. I have people on payroll. I got students that I got to make sure graduate. So I don't have the privilege that maybe everybody else I know has right now, with the exception of my wife. A lot of people, I don't know. It's just different. It's a different weight, man. That's all I can say, man. It's different when other people's lives are legitimately in your hands and you just came home from 17 years and you're not supposed to be there. And then they did a news story and I'm grateful for that. I'm super grateful, but that was just like, boom. And it's just a lot, man. There's a lot of behind the scenes work. It's a lot of work. So it's a lot of anxiety. It's a lot of stress. But I feel like some of that is always going to be there when you're trying to accomplish things that never been done.
Are you aware of any triggers that kind of cause you to have anxiety or PTSD?
Oh, yeah. I just had one before. I was on the phone with somebody, one of my good brothers, man, and he mentioned somebody, and I misunderstood the message, and I just connected the individual he was talking about to a group of individuals I don't care for. And I probably was wrong, but it was just a trigger because I'm very protective of my brother. And then when he introduces this person, I'm like, well, what, why? And there's certain triggers, I apologize. He knows I'm crazy. We've been dealing with each other for years, but I'm super hyper. I'm overprotective. When you talked about diagnosis, I've been diagnosed with type 1 bipolar, depression, anxiety. The doctor asked me this week at my physical, she said, how many days a week do you wake up feeling down? I was like, you really want to know? And I had to tell her, I said, man, I wake up every single day depressed. I said, I wish I could turn it off. I say, but I got to make a choice when I get up to remind myself and put things in perspective. I said, there's certain steps I got to take. And I said, once I get it rolling, I'm good. But if I let it go too long, sometimes I stay in that mode. And then we started talking about stuff she was going through. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's just a lot. And there's a lot of thoughts attached to mental illness. One thing I never talk to people about, one of my symptoms that I battle with is thoughts of death. Like it's I could be driving down the street and I would be overwhelmed with this thought that I'm gonna get into a car accident, because I'm seeing car accidents in Atlanta. And it's not like somebody be like, oh, I have those too. No, I'm talking about this thought will be with me like a whole day. And I'll do everything to try to get away from it. But that's when it's bad. That's when I don't take the steps. That's when I'm not leaning on my support. That's when I'm not communicating. That's when I let it build up. Certain things do get there.
I want to touch on that. How do you feel like when you have those moments and you're feeling any kind of anxiety, PTSD, you say you wake up depressed every day, how does that affect your relationship with your wife? Does she have any mental health things going on? You don't have to touch on her things, but like, do you guys share that?
Yeah, I'll definitely share my side. Because I mentioned we go to therapy, or we did. We went because of me. You know, I'll go on record and say, everybody's got their stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But my wife, at the end of the day, she started to reflect my attitude. I had became sour. I forgot how to appreciate what I had. And I remember an argument we had, and she was like, yo, you have everything. You have a business, you have a house, you have this, you have that. And I just didn't get it. And she's like, yo, you just came home from prison 3 years ago or 2 years, I don't know, whatever. And I'm like, and I still mentally didn't process. So my communication with her would become short. My frustration would a lot of times come her direction. And I'm grateful that she was patient enough to still stand by my side, because it's hard. I tell people, I've talked to people recently that are in relationships, married. It's hard. It's not easy when you don't know a person, you never live with the person, all that. When it works, it's beautiful, because you fast forward, I'm doing a lot of work, and she's done working on a few things that she may need, but man, it's dope now. It's fire. You know what I'm saying? But we had to put in the work. Relationship and marriage, just like friendship, you got to nurture it. There's times where you got to water it. There's times you got to bring in the sun. There's times where you got to pluck some weeds out. Or what, as long as you're willing to put in the work, it's fire. And right now, present day, our marriage is stronger than ever, and at the right time. I think we needed to go. I don't like to say that because I don't ever want to justify any of the things we went through, but I know that we learned from some of the things we went through. And we've been on the record. We never said, people get up here, oh, my marriage is perfect. We don't. Somebody lying. Somebody. If y'all never ever have a disagreement, somebody sitting there gritting their teeth and smiling all day long, and they ain't telling the truth. Mm-hmm. But put in that work. That's Absolutely. All I can say.
What you said, waking up every day depressed. What exactly? Can you describe that feeling? Are you able to?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I guess I feel, depending on, it gets intense. It can get intense. I went through a season where it felt like there was a literal cloud or dimness over me. Mm-hmm. I remember at one point when I hit the wall, when I sent the flares up for help and really identified who actually cared and all that stuff. I just remember being in a place. I don't know, man. My brain didn't feel. I literally felt like I was gonna go crazy. I literally felt like, even I would sit there and I'd be telling myself, "Hey, chill. It's okay. Yeah, this is going on." And I'd be trying to have a conversation, but no matter what I was doing, it was like my brain was it was in a different place, and I had never been there, because I've always been a pretty logical, structured guy. And it had got bad to the point where I went to see a psychiatrist because, and this is the first time I'm really talking about it, my short-term memory started to fail. With like stuff I should know. I wasn't able to find things that were like right in front. Like, it was just, when you're off, right? And Yeah, man. That's some of the, man, all I'm gonna say is trauma is real. I'm addressing mine. I'm fighting mine. And the fight's not easy, I'll tell you that.
Mm. You were talking about how you were leading up to boiling points where you're kind of imploding and exploding and you're feeling like you don't know who you can really talk to, and you said you had that moment where you everything kind of started to hit the wall, so to speak. What led up to that? Was it stress? Was it a combination of things?
Stress. Year one of the school, going through the probably expected growing pains, but me probably not expecting those growing pains. Working on the marriage. I'm dealing with one of my brothers, man. His mother's sick bad, man. He doesn't know. Like there's certain. It was just a lot, and then I'm being asked not to tell him, and it's a lot. And I think what burnt me out was I didn't establish boundaries. And you could call my phone. Anybody, you message me at 3 a.m. If I'm up at 3:14 to use the restroom, I'm gonna respond. You got early text. You know I'm up early in the morning anyways, but I've learned to put my phone on D&D, even though some people can still get through. But I didn't have boundaries. That burnt me out. Before I even came home, I was a senior elder. I was able to help reentry, and a lot of guys, trusted me in that process, and it was a lot of that. I came home to a family that they had no men. I kicked my stepfather out of my mother's house, moved her down to Georgia because he was a clown. I came home to some real stuff, man. Like I'm not saying everybody else didn't come home. I know everybody else came home to some real stuff. But in the midst of me going through some real 17 years, pandemic, all that, and then everything else, it was just like the being pulled on by people. And then a lot of times, I think the thing that really sent me over was because a lot of people, they look at me as a position, like a leader or somebody they can, I don't know, God, whatever it is, advice. But a lot of times I would be talking to people just for them to argue or debate something that I felt that I could see clearly, because I felt like I was looking at what they were discussing, and they would ignore it, and then they would hit the wall, and then they would come back, and I would have to re-explain again. And I think going through the process with certain people and having to understand that certain people just weren't going to get it.
Right.
And that it was time to start letting go of certain things and all that. But before that point, I was hanging on to a lot of stuff that it was just beating me up on top of everything else that I've signed up for.
While we're on the topic of, you mentioned family, some family things that you were going through. When you first came home, there is a question in the comments that I want you to read.
He said, when you came home, how did you handle encountering people who were not present during your incarceration, but tried to embrace you or show you love now that you were home? I mean, for some of them, I accepted my role and understood that I probably wasn't the best friend or best family member or whatever it was. And I wasn't tripping when I seen them or they called. It was just like we never really stopped talking. But for some people, stay over there. I'm a firm believer of that. You weren't with me when you could have been. I see who you are. There's no need for you. I want you to win and eat, and I pray for you and all that, but you just can't do it over here. Not at this table. And that's been working so far. I kind of focus on genuine people that have been there, when I've crashed or, I'm going through something. People that I know I can trust my conversation with, because there's a lot of stuff I need to talk to or process at times that we can't talk about because I could get sued or whatever with business and stuff like that. Yeah. So my circle is small. My circle is definitely less than 10 people. It might be less than 7. I don't know. That's something like that. But I'm just working on boundaries, focusing on that, man, just because it just got hairy. I just want to say to anybody, I just want to go back to anybody coming home, man, like, be careful the company you keep, because people get caught up in your hype. You know, a lot of people were excited when I came home and you know, but it weren't real, man. You know, it was a lot of wasted conversations, time, energy, and effort as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just not into that now. And it's working. Got more time to just chill, try to take naps, stuff like that.
That's dope. That's dope. I want to go into touch a little further into your family life. How do you feel since you've been home? Like, do you feel like overwhelmed by your responsibilities as far as like being a man that just came home and you have a wife and a school? What different things do you feel overwhelm you with your busy schedule?
The decisions that I have to make are the hard ones. You know, it's like, as far as my household and even the business, the business was my wife's dream, the school. You know, it's just we were able to work together to get to it. And next step is my dream, and that's what we should do. But for me, she runs the, you know, I call not the easy, the necessary stuff, right? I call it, a lot of marriages, the wife pays the bills, the man don't know how to pay. I don't know how to pay electric bill. I had to look that up, right? We just got certain. I take the trash out. I work on the car, right? But when it comes to the heavy decisions, I respect it and I appreciate it because I fought for that, you know, that position. But those are the decisions that I have to make, and a lot of times they could be every day of a week. They could be once a week, but I seldom don't get breaks when you are a boss or a husband or a leader in your family or your family, community, friends, whatever. You're looked at to be a problem solver, or at least somebody that can give guidance. So there's plenty of times when we talk about the depression thing, I'm feeling down, but I gotta go. Like Sunday, I'm gonna probably wake up. Maybe Sunday is the day I don't wake up feeling that, but Sunday I'm probably gonna wake up feeling that way. But guess what? I gotta go. I gotta make sure I speak at that event because we're gonna go help some people. You know, so I think that's the weight. Yeah, man.
You're very ambitious. You're very driven. You're busy, but it's not even busy. You're productive, but you guys move around so much. How do you take care of yourself? At what point do you establish boundaries with yourself and take any breaks? Do you take any breaks?
I have a lot of I plan to take a lot of breaks. I always plan to take a break. But for instance, like yesterday, I got up. I want to say I got up at 5:30. Hopped on a truck. I still got a 9 to 5. I drive a truck. Raced through my route. Got off at like 1. Ran home. Took a shower. Let the dogs out. Ran back to my physical at 2. My wife called me. There was some stuff going on. She needed me to come to the school. So by the time I left the doctor, came home, picked her up. It was time to go to school. Had to address the school. We had an assembly, nothing too major, but you know. And now I've been up since 5:30, loading trucks and at doctors. I had to fast all day because they did blood work. But that's just an example of my day. By the time I got home yesterday, it was like 10:30. You know, but a lot of days are like that. I deal with a lot of mental exhaustion. I dealt with a lot of it last year. A lot of people thinking I'm acting funny, or no, I'm busy. I'm busy. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting things done like grown people. It's okay. We don't have to talk every day. But there was a lot of that. It gets weird, you know. But yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of different things, man, that just wore me out with that. Yeah.
Have you always had this busy energy before you were incarcerated, or
Yeah.
you've always been like that?
I've always been one. I'm not gonna let nobody outwork me. I'm gonna earn my spot at the head of the table. If I do have a mentor. I do have mentors. It's not like I'm like, oh, no, but it's just that.